I'll
Sorry.
start again. It's okay. Um, other children's mothers. Once in a while, other children's mothers lent me bits of their affection, a smile that spread in my direction as I sang in the school concert, a reassuring pat on the arm if I was frightened by the sound of a distant tornado siren. A good job, Lori, when I helped her daughter mix the cookie batter thoroughly. I jump in surprise at these signs of acceptance and approval. I wish I could have shoved them in my pockets, saved them for later, rationed them to myself like Halloween candy. Pulling a bit out every time my mother told me I was stupid or gave me her icy stare as I walked in from school. My mother wasn't the mothering kind.
Mm.
Mm.
And this is one of my New York poems, so it's a little older. I moved to New York for a really bad relationship, really bad. So this is a poem about the end of that relationship. It's called Little West 12th Street. I say goodbye to you for good on Little West 12th Street, near the meat markets and Izzy's New York bagels, and the Hellfire Club, where for a fee they'll beat you black and blue. I never needed such services, though. You were so good at beating the hell out of me with just your steely stare and a few bitter words. Um, my doctor's been trying to get me to eat less sugar, and I have not been able to do that, but I was able to write this book. So it's called This is Pre-Diabetes. I need a cookie, and I don't mean an edible, just the regular kind. The sweetness makes my eyes roll back in my head, makes my panic recede for a minute or two. Then the crash. I need another, another, another. This one's a little longer, and there's just nothing I can say about it. I'm just gonna read it. It's called Reading Playboy in My Father's Bedroom. There was no one to play with that summer. My few friends away at camp or at their family lake houses. My mother always watching game shows in her room. When it was too hot to be outside and my father was at work, I'd sneak into his bedroom. On the bookcase, among all the Reader's Digest condensed books and the Sears Handyman tool catalogs, piles and piles of Playboy magazines. I loved those women, their wide, sweet eyes, their prettiness, so welcoming. It didn't matter to me if they were in a turtleneck and polyester slacks or wore no clothes at all. They looked unembarrassed, comfortable, and they were always someplace I wished I could be, on a beach with the whitest sand and the bluest water, in a field of wildflowers, on the softest looking white shag rug before a roaring fire. I loved to read the details of their lives and the captions that accompanied their pictures. The movies they'd seen and I wished I could see, James Bond, The Goodbye Girl, the books they loved that I loved too, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Little House on the Prairie. They were so interesting. In my shorts and old t-shirts, I'd spend all afternoon daydreaming. July centerfold took me swimming with dolphins. The girls of the Ivy League helped me with my homework, gave me my own room in their off-campus apartment. The Swiss ski champion took me to her mountain villa, let me wear her white fur coat with matching muff, taught me to ski the Black Diamond Slope. But the October centerfold, all-American Missouri farm girl, loved me most. She bought me overalls and snakeskin cowboy boots like hers. We fed the chickens, rode the horses, discovered a litter of kittens in the barn. At night, I curled up next to her in her big feather bed, and she let me bury my head in her long auburn hair.
Nice.
This is called Blood Moon. Moon, as you rise over West 55th Street, oddly immense, red as the rocks of Sedona, I'm struck with the urge to bow down to you, beg you to grant me the power to enchant rush hour multitudes, make them stop in their tracks, notice my existence too.
Hmm.
And this one's called Belongings. I find a yellow shell, the color of an autumn leaf, barely bigger than a kernel of corn. Unexpected oddity, almost buried by the usual crush of razor clams and wet sand. I'm attached to the shell as if it were gold or an antique bauble. I'm like my grandmother that way. She saved shells from her trips to Florida. She also saved an envelope of curls from my first haircut, all my baby teeth, the pink bracelet the nurse tied to my newborn wrist, even a newspaper clipping from the day I was born. Record low temperature set, 22 below at O'Hare Airport. Here in Maine, it's not so cold. The water shimmers. The world seems graceful and well-meaning. I cradle that shell in my hand.
Hmm.
And this is a lament, and it's called Lament. I'm so tired of being myself. God, just let me be something else for a while. Something hardy, like the spiny leaf dandelion that sprouts up in the crack of our concrete sidewalk. Something eternal, the firmament that fills the space between galaxies. Something sweet and knowing, the fruit in the Garden of Eden. Or just someone so loved, like the child whose mother puts cheerful notes in her lunchbox, like the guy who can really play guitar. And this is my last one. And it's called Hell's Kitchen. And I didn't write this poem as much as come upon this poem. There's a sign in the window of a dark old bar. Beer as cold as your wife's heart. Someone has written, Sarah Dodd was killed and robbed here many times. Who knows what it means? This cruel thing scrawled in red under the window. Thank you. Thanks. I'm looking forward to hearing you, Linda and Francis.
Yay, Lori.
Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Lori.
Wow, it was great. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Frances Donovan. She is the author of Arboretum in a Jar, Lily Poetry Review Books, 2023. Her chapbook, Mad Quick Hand of the Seashore, was a finalist for a Lambda Literary Award. Frances's poems have appeared in Lily Poetry Review, Solstice, Heavy Feather Review, Swim, and elsewhere. Her interviews of other poets can be found at The Rumpus and on her website, www.gardenofwords.com. Frances holds an MFA in poetry from Lesley University and is a certified poet educator with Mass Poetry. In 2019, Boston Poet Laureate Portia Alawala selected one of her poems to be displayed at Boston City Hall. Her work deals with themes of home, family, intergenerational trauma, and sexual and gender identity. She remembers fondly the summer of 1998 when she drove a bulldozer in a pride parade while wearing a bustier. Please welcome Frances.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I want to not look at myself. There we go. So it's been a while since I've read. It's been a while since I've been with the PoemWorks community. So looking forward to it. And my target end date is 7:40 in time. So I'll start with Arboretum in the Jar. And I'm going to read some different poems this time. I'm going to start with Fat Snow White. Moon curve of her face, around the slant of her black eyes, lashes whisking over her white skin, stark against her hair, held back with a crimson bow, swooped and gathered in two hung low buns nestled against her shoulders. Thin straps of her blue camisole, with their bows, breasts cradled in cotton, rolls of luscious flesh rumpling down to the wide, bare belly, navel, the dainty landmark of that field, the curve of her belly that can't help but escape the simple pleasure of her panties. Wide band with pale flesh folded over the pudenda, red center, her wrist on the counter, bearing the weight of that body, braced against the edge of the vanity, a can of hairspray at the edge of the mirror, the round shell of the sink, how her heavy thigh casts a shadow on the concave bowl. Her elbow shelters against her hip, the red edge of her panty, delicate inner edge of her forearm, rolls to the iPhone she holds, its bitten apple, just below the camera eye that proclaims, "Here is the fairest." If people are not muted, could you please mute yourselves? We're getting some interference. The fish head. Under deep water I found you, in a jar as big as my head. Boiling and poised to explode, you made the glass hot in my hands. She warned me not to, but I carried you anyway, past those sand-colored walls, the pool you could not swim in, the shoes you could not wear. I carried you, my treasure, my foundling, my arboretum in a jar. At the top of the stairs, your bubbling subsided. But even in your tower room, the one that I picked out for you, you seethe and you simmer, a veritable forest of tangles. I wonder if I will ever get you straight. So there's a few braids that run through this book. I started this collection thinking about the archetype of the princess and what it means and how it's changed over time. I went back and looked at the original Snow White, and it was just like saccharine, that image of Snow White, and what a difference the Disney princesses of today. It's just been really cool to see little girls in grubby sneakers and princess dresses going out there and being princesses and conquering the world. So I also took a look at a couple of fairy tales. Snow White and Rapunzel both have places in the book, as well as just a little princess who it's fairly obvious it's a part of myself. And then there are miscellaneous princesses like Manic Episode Princess. Mad dash to the sprinkle goo of the daily toothbrush. She throws out the toothbrush, starts writing a novel about a princess who meets a queen, who meets a knave, and also navel oranges, grocery carts, and sideways apple trees. Unicorns are real, and all the dishes are dirty. She'll get around to cleaning them, but first she needs to iron these leaves into some wax paper. Bat wings in the darkness, winging by the bus stop vampires with their black and white spectator pumps. That's how she knows it's Armageddon. It's on its way. The two toadstools in the emergency room where she shouts, "I will not lie down. I will not." Her mother winces, says, "You're hurting my ears." They're drawing blood from her arm. It comes out thick and dark. Why are they doing this to her? The oak door takes phone calls and tells her, "Don't be afraid. They're giving her something." Rapunzel missing the tower. Eternally on the Sawmill Parkway, just after sunset, Rapunzel driving a friend from college home to Brooklyn. She's forgotten what home is. Not those cluttered rooms in the tower anymore. Not those white plaster walls in dormitories as old as the hoop skirt. That first summer, house sitting for a philosophy professor, she slept in the study. She washed the dishes before she ate. On campus, she took LSD with her boyfriend and stayed up all night, watching the shadow of the sprinkler on the ceiling writhe back and forth. She tries turning off the highway, but the road leads away. Even in dreams, she can't find her way home. Sometimes she reaches the tower, but there are no walls, just a spiral up the side, like an inside-out Guggenheim, its luxury apartments, a retirement home, a petting zoo, or she is a baby sitting upright, chubby arms protruding from a circle of frills. A cat curls beside her. She's in a dark cave of redwood and carpet, a plexiglass bubble in the roof that lets in one beam of California sun. Does she remember this? Or does the photo she saw in an album, now yellowed with age, plant the memory in her mind where she finds it unfurling, telling the story about the place she came from? So that's Arboretum in a Jar. That book was nominated for the Mass Book Award. There was a lot of stiff competition for that, and I'm happy to say that many Lily poets were shortlisted and longlisted, along with some really excellent other poets. I'm trying to remember if Enzo Ceylon Surin's book American Scapegoat was shortlisted or won. But that's a great book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I have been working on some sonnets because, well, it's not just because some fancy poets have been doing sonnet cycles. It's because sonnets are fun, and I find that if you set a few rules for yourself and write a whole bunch of poems with those rules applied, it just makes the writing go a lot more easily, and it's more likely to bring something cohesive out. These first few ones were actually in my submission for the Mass Cultural Council, which I won a grant from this summer, and was incredibly surprised. And I'm very grateful, and I'm very grateful to the people in the PoemWorks community who helped me, trudge along that road. 16 years since the last drink, the IPA I ordered to ease the passage out of pain, past oblivion, into the endless, dark ocean. I drove north to become a wave returning to its source, found someone to feed my cat, packed a change of clothes, my meds even, planned to drop from a ferry, life insurance to my family, but the ferries don't run in December. I kept driving, swallowing schnapps. Death wouldn't come when called. In Kennebunk, the crunch of frozen seaweed as I stumbled to shore, the calming shock of cold, floating, silence, the hiss of the snow on the surface, water penetrating wool and cotton. No more suffering. How long was I in the water? When I began to sink, the incessant pulse of the body grasped the soul like my lungs grasped the air, the red thread, the narrow strand between sea and trees. Patient is a 40-year-old well-nourished female smitten by an insane urge to slice a peach's flesh. How easily it slides through her wrist's skin like honey. Never done, just the urge, glittering over the snow's ice crust in January. In the hospital, a woman in a 9-inch nails t-shirt waxes enthusiastic about education, regular scars marching down her thin arms. She sings in the shower. After 10 minutes, a kind woman dressed like a Japanese schoolgirl raps, says, "I need to see your face and hands." It's twilight now. A gray and white bird, like a jay, flits through the snow to the empty feeder. I could go on about suffering. The snow melts. The sun gets in. The knife seduces. Not the knife, but the idea of the knife. In the fantasy, there's no pain, just the bright slice, and life slides away in a smooth ribbon. Red scarves tied to a girl's wrists as she sinks through water. A band called Warpaint used the image in a video. Such an outcry. White girls, cultural appropriation, suicide porn, worse than tits, or even a vulva's lovely folds. Slice across that mess. On the screen, there's no haptic contact. At Faulkner Hospital, I tried with a plastic knife and cried and cried. I could go on about suffering. A man who'd lived at the homeless shelter on Long Island just looked at me when I said, "It must have been nice to be on an island." I imagined a sanitarium for tuberculosis, willows in the breeze, bustle skirts. He just looked at me. I click my ruby slipper 3 times and I'm back in Springdale, watching cartoons after school, fouling my mouth with cheese puffs. On TV, someone throws a paper sack out the car window and the Indian cries. That world is gone now. The bell-bottom jeans I didn't know were out of fashion, the fluffy hair, the giant shoulder pads, the plastic upright grid of checkers in the commercial. The girl connects 4 diagonally. Pretty sneaky, sis. I could go on about suffering, that difficult world. Somehow I grew up and got happy. Someone tore down the towers, built black glass boxes in their place, market rate rent. I wonder if the Y is still there, the doorway where the junkies would pass out. It always smelled of piss. I've ended up with a bay window and garden full of purple blossoms. Even the sage blooms purple. I found a cathedral in the woods. The cathedral was the woods, and the woods lay above the golf course at the far edge of campus. A path from a clump of houses into this pocket of wild. If I stepped through the ferns, I'd find the deer path that led to a grove of white pines. A bare trunk as a bench, and I would sit and gaze upward through the swaying columns to the sky. The whole open structure, swaying. I was a cauldron. Before and after, I ran, walked, ran. I'd left the church. I told myself, if I can finish this course, I can finish college. Madness had found me. The church had rejected me. In that moment of sway, none of it mattered. Once I believed that a house could sleep, its exhalations mixing with the trees' exhalations. It's why that cool permeates the air just under trees at twilight. But sometimes a house just sits there, impervious to who inhabits it. Sometimes houses are towers, families, sofas, sinks, bedrooms stacked atop each other. Only the roaches able to squirm between floors. I could go on about suffering. And our apartment, my brother and mother exhaled dreams in their bed. I kept vigil. The bells at St. John's Church pealed over the sleeping city. In the darkness, I thought I saw the northern lights, but it was just madness descending. I floated in a sea of pajamas and dreams, perfect comfort. The dog I adopted to make me walk outside burrowed under the covers with me. Mornings ceased to exist. A day I rose before noon was a good day. My world winnowed to 5 square feet, the desk and the couch beside it, then just the couch, then just one corner of the couch, my laptop propped backwards on the desk, watching Community, watching Outlander. I lived like a lobster on my bottom. I floated in the trap. All around me, dreams rose and crenellated like kelp. I could go on about suffering, but this was the absence of suffering. The sun made its night blind rounds across the sky. Pollen collected on the windowsill. The bees touched down on the flowers outside. I slept and slept. Ralphie would like to make a guest appearance. He has this wonderful habit of running across my keyboard
Yes.
in meetings. Sometimes I'd rouse for a loaf of bread. I marveled at the world going on above me. People didn't notice I was underground. They kept smiling, handing me change for my loaf, chirping, "Have a nice day." I had a nice day. Medicine has a name for the underground, but not for this. My mood is fine. I'm just sleeping all the time, I told my doctor. Lassitude blooming, surly angels suspending me over a crowded dark theater. I was the chandelier. No, I was the asbestos curtain. When smoke bloomed, I fell and saved the crowds from burning. They complained about the soot on their clothes. I could go on about suffering, but I didn't suffer. I climbed through the hole in the paper, in the screen, into other people's stories. My life happened to someone else. It wasn't until I woke that suffering began. So it's a mosaic memoir. It's definitely not complete, but the MCC grant made me lean a little bit more into the more raw subject matter. So thanks for bearing with me while we went through that. Thanks.
Wow, Francis, very brave work. I commend you on digging into something that is very hard to put language to, and you've done it. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Linda Lamenza, is a poet and literacy specialist in Massachusetts. Her work is forthcoming or has appeared in Green Ink Poetry, Lily Poetry Review, San Pedro River Review, the Comstock Review, Nick's Mate Review, and elsewhere. My poetry has also been included in elsewhere. I added that in. She is a member of the PoemWorks community in Boston. Her first chapbook, Left-Handed Poetry, was published by Finishing Line Press earlier this year. Left-Handed Poetry weaves poems of pain and healing through a traumatic accident involving the poet as pedestrian and a vehicle, and takes us on a passage from tragedy to hope. Please welcome Linda.
Hello. Thank you. I'm so excited to be reading with Lori and Francis. This is left-handed poetry. Just came at the end of, or in May, I guess. And so, yes, this is my arm. A lot of you actually know that story, but I was run over by a car several years ago, and I sustained a lot of injury to the right side of my body. And so the left-handedness came from learning how to operate on the left side of my body for my injuries. And so I'm going to read you a few poems from left-handed poetry, and then I'll move on to something else. This one is called On the Asphalt. Can you hear it okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. From my mind, I draw a card. Courage. Cross the Ponte Vecchio. Toss into the Arno my pain. They're all here. the mobile station manager, the sisters who got out of their car to help me.
Mm.
I'm off to sip cappuccino at Bar Hortensia, empty my pockets, make room for joy, like tourists in the Uffizi courtyard who pose next to the twin of Michelangelo's David. Both of us could pass for real.
Mm.
Okay. Well, this is me a little awkward moving around because I'm not home, so I couldn't make things as easy to read. This one is called Another Ambulance Daydream. I was in our kitchen making sauce, garden tomatoes simmering in their well of loneliness. I was dancing barefoot on the schooner Hindu, watching the coast soar by, playing flute on the quarterdeck. I know we walked through Provincetown. I drove, you flew. Eggs Benedict at Cafe Edwige. I lose myself at the song of myself among the intimate photographs of strangers. I know I am somewhere between earth and sky.
Mm.
Okay. Watching the Palio di Siena on the hospital TV. After a Tide commercial, horses arrive in the cathedral, horseshoes tapping on marble, horse heads adorned with dyed bridles, stallions, all of them, majestic beside their riders, matching vests, angeled frescoes, each receiving his blessing from the carmine cassocked priest. Go, go and return victorious. Piazza del Campo, a sea of sap green hats, gold capes, shields, revelers swarm the riders and horses round the treacherous shell-shaped course. 3 hours of pageantry, the flags, ancient anthems croon, drums and hooves against wind. Oxy. I've been awake since the day I met your incessant silence, me with deafening dreams. You are fickle. So often you go missing, and always I collapse with joy at your return. Entangled in the line, I take the bait, follow your lead, but never get it right. All my plans broken. Weren't we going to Italy? Didn't I weep to please you?
Mm.
Okay, so this is the last one from Left-Handed Poetry. I totally forgot to look at the time, so you can nudge me if I'm too long,
You're
please.
fine. You are so fine.
Okay, thank you. So this is one of the poems toward the end of the book, and it's called 4 Years to the Day. Truth is, I don't remember her name and heard only the hiss of highway and her flat metal voice saying, I didn't see her. Okay, so I'm going to read some from my next book, which is coming in the fall from Nix's Mate. It's called Feast of the Seven Fishes. And I'm really excited. I'm thrilled to work with these publishers. They're wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to try to not to make a mess here. I've got a fan on me, so I want to make sure my things aren't flying. All right, here we go. So the first one I wanted to read from Feast of the Seven Fishes is called Independence Day. And it's funny because we were talking when we first got on about fireflies. Independence Day. We catch fireflies in cupped hands, watch them light like coals in there. Neighbor boy catches some, tosses their season onto the driveway, and with his foot makes of them streaks of iridescence across black tar. It is dark, and no one cares where we are. my mom's character, and I have a lot of poetry about her. This one is life advice from my mom, who's an old Italian woman. Life advice from my mother. You need some good decaf black coffee. You must never allow a knife to meet lettuce. Pieces of anything should be no bigger than the tip of your pinky. Don't smash the dough or the cookies will be like hockey pucks. You should always blanch fresh green beans. Have them on hand. Go to the Italian deli and buy a couple of anchovies. Use Crisco, it softens. You want it light? Do not use paste. Keep AIRY. Don't pack it or it will taste like sawdust. Weighing down eggplant gets rid of the bitter. Relationships are like flowers. Ignore them and they die.
Mm.
That's my mom.
Mm.
This one is, I have a deaf cousin. Her name is Lisa, and she passed away in her 30s. It was a really sad loss for us. But this was a memory that I had of visiting with her when she came to watch a deaf softball league team play, and I met her and we had lunch. So this is called Elegy for My Cousin in memory of Lisa Love, 1966 to 2006. After the deaf softball league tournament, the motel lobby is packed. Players and fans stand in groups, wave arms, hands, fingers at me as if I understand. You're here all the way from Council Bluffs, a devoted fan to your Omaha team. I can hug you and finger spell hello with the ASL alphabet, but it takes too long to spell out every word. My pencil slips from my hand, bounces and clatters on the tile floor, rolls to stillness. We won, you scrawl on my yellow legal size pad, the one I carry because I don't know your language.
Mhm.
It's funny because several years afterward, I learned sign languages.
Mm.
It's an amazing thing if you can learn sign language. It opens up your world to a lot of people.
Mm.
So this is a poem called Farmer's Market, Gratz, Pennsylvania. We go down to Pennsylvania about once a year. My dad and stepmom live there. We have a lot of nice memories from there. Farmer's Market, Gratz, Pennsylvania. No one minds the long lines for fresh squeezed lemonade, strawberries, shoe fly pie. No one looks at a watch. Amish kids puddle jumping in the parking lot, girls gathering skirts to keep from getting wet, boys barreling across concrete. We stand, eat carnival food for dinner, sausages, hand-twisted pretzels, catfish on Wonder Bread, Troutman's French fries. I grasp Anna's hand and we rush to where girls in bonnets and boys in suspenders let us taste this sweetness. Wish us good night. Right, let's see. I think this is my last one from, yeah. I'm still okay with the time.
Absolutely.
All right. So this one is I'm actually talking to you from Centerville, Massachusetts, which is on the Cape. And so I decided to read you this poem I wrote called Under the Centerville Bridge.
My mother-in-law is from Centerville.
Is that right? We have a cottage here, which was the result of getting run over by a car, but that's a long story.
I look forward to hearing it sometime.
Yes,
Sorry.
I will definitely share it. Under the Centerville Bridge. We echo our arrival to overhead kids before they cannonball into our river. We dodge the guitar string fishing lines. Anna peels water with her paddles, clicks her tongue at me as I kayak in circles. Poor mama, need help? I shake my head firmly in attempt at confidence, and my daughter leads us back to the salt marsh, where she holds the boat for me as I climb out. In my muck shoes, carry our kayaks. I haul mine, give it everything I have, worry through the mire. Okay, so I want to read you a couple of new things. Is that okay, Richard?
Absolutely.
All right. So it's a little tricky because I'm reading off screen. I don't usually do that, but I'll do my best. And these poems that I have are part of my my next book, which is it's kind of an odd combination of things, but somehow military and mushrooms intersect. And so I teach at Hanscom Air Force Base, and this is my first year on a base, teaching on a base, and I'm writing about a lot of my life experience and what's happening there for me. So this one's called Stuck Behind a Bus on the Way to School. Stuck behind a bus on the way to school conjures memories of a bus ride through the Apennines. Mountains pass in a rapid bus blur. Behind me, a woman in Florentine print dress, a pattern I've only seen on Castelli ceramics, has lips an unnatural red, cheeks layered in foundation, nails precise and almond-shaped, thin gold bands on 5 fingers. She cradles in her lap a small animal with pink bejeweled collar. The creature stands on its hind legs, scans for a snack, spiders or scorpions. Ferret? Un furetto? I ask her incredulously. Is meerkat, she says in English with stilted Russian accent. I must have heard wrong. I ask, Dall'Africa? She nods, and I wonder if the meerkat considers bus riders his mob or his predators. When we arrive at Tiburtina, the meerkat is shuffled alone in his carrier, alone for his lifetime. Meerkats are, they live in packs, so having one by itself is not a great thing. Made me really sad. All right, this one is, hold on one sec. Sorry, thank you for being patient. Shuffle some things around. Okay, this one is called Arrival, Hanscom Elementary School. His medication ran out, so he may be slightly off today, says Jake's mother. I whisper these words to my colleague Elaine. I know she won't forget to tell his teacher. Ricardo throws punches at the air when his mom tells him no, he may not take his iPad out of the car. He kicks the front seat before he exits the vehicle. Riley has something important to tell me, she says as she slides out the car. I've never seen snow, she reports. I'm from Guam. Can we smell the snow? I find a glove in the crosswalk, slide it over the gate post to draw attention. A first grader reaches for ice crystals on her dad's car, brings them to her lips. It's really cool to be on a base. Kids come from all over the world, all over the United States and some other places too. Okay, let's see. Here's this poem is School. My students' propensity to eat Cocoa Puffs for lunch, chocolate milk poured over. It's how long it takes Isla to get out of her car at morning arrival. Her mother's deployment yesterday to Southeast Asia, leaving after drop-off. It's the way military kids hold doors open for every authority figure, and how, just like at every other school, boys play with pretend guns, shooting each other at dismissal. It's the first grade girl who clears a classroom with one gesture, hands held high, chair overhead, ready to hurl. And the way she tries to connect with me by slamming the door to the room where I'm teaching over and over, until I am so unnerved that I drop my phone under the table and hurry my students out. Sophie is everywhere, my student laments. This poem is Sophie and how many times she has moved from base to base. Her next move to Arizona is coming up. She will leave behind her dog. I have one more. Is one more okay?
Yes.
All right, here's one of my weird mushroom things. After the storm on base, several were reported outside the BX. Boletus rufosinamomius. Instead of gills, blotchy pores, symbiotic plants nurture its shared root zone, tend to thrive near hazelnut, oak, birch. Brick red cap will turn to cinnamon with age. Thanks so much. So fun to read with this group. Really appreciate it.
Beautiful poems, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you all three. And thank you for making this older format that we've had for many years such a joy. Really wonderful reading. Let's have a round of applause for everyone.
Great reading.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a
Thanks
pleasure.
everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see familiar faces and new ones.
Good to see all of you. Thank you,
Fabulous, you
Richard.
guys. Have a great night.
Thanks,
too.
Richard.
And thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
Richard and everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Hi, Shanna.
Hi, Shauna.
Oh, Shauna's here.
Donna, sorry.
Oh, hi. Oh, hi.
Francis. Long
How
time
are
no
you?
see. Good.
Good. That was a pleasure
Hi,
to hear
Shauna.
you guys read. I was a little late, so I missed Lori. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
It's okay.
Watch
was
the recording.
Yeah.
Lori's
Wonderful to
amazing.
hear Rapunzel again. It's been a long time.
aw.
I
Yeah.
love these reworkings of these fairy tales.
Mm,
Oh,
right.
thanks, Richard. You'll send us the link to the recording when it's up on YouTube, right?
I will indeed.
Excellent.
I always put it on the flyer that I send out,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but I'll
Okay.
also let you know when it's up there.
Thank you so much. It was so
Yeah,
fun.
thanks
It's
for
great.
organizing this
Really
reading
great.
series, Richard.
It's,
It's really great having them
first
to
time
come.
I've gone into the summer. I used to, forego
Usually take off July and August, right?
now that I'm retired. But it's interesting because we're all in such different locations than usual. So
Mm, right.
Zoom, we're able to come together.
Mhm,
So
mm,
it's a joy.
right. Thank
Thank
you. Mhm, thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Good
Bye,
night.
everybody. Good night.
Good night. Yeah.